What's up, everyone, and welcome back. Candace Owens blasts Khabib Nurmagomedov over cancel culture Colby comments. Conservative pundit Candace Owens is now trying to chime in with her 2 cents regarding the GOAT Khabib Nurmagomedov, who retired an undefeated lightweight champion, blasting him over recent comments he made about Colby Covington. Khabib made a long statement on his socials lambasting chaos over the fallout of what transpired outside of a Miami restaurant last Monday, in which he was involved in a physical altercation with Jorge Masvidal over comments Colby made about Gamebred's kids. While police reports haven't named Colby directly, it's believed that he's pressing charges against Masvidal over the encounter. But Khabib stated that Colby crossed the line when he talked about Masvidal's family, and that pressing charges with police over the whole thing is an incredibly lame thing to do. He called on other welterweights in the UFC to no longer accept future fights against Colby. Now, Candace Owens, in responding to a fan who reposted the statement and called Khabib soft, tweeted this out, calling Khabib a few names. Right? This is so embarrassing, calling for a boycott. He better go buy a pussy hat and join the NBA. MMA is a man's sport. What do you make of this whole thing? Joe Rogan believes Conor McGregor should be careful in calling out Kamaru Usman. With Conor McGregor slated to return to the octagon later this year after a 1-year layoff from injury due to a broken leg, he's called for a title fight in the welterweight division. Conor is a former champ, and if he were to attain the welterweight title, he would be the first UFC fighter to win belts in 3 different weight classes. The problem is, he would have to go through Kamaru Usman to get it, and he's the pound-for-pound best UFC fighter on the planet. Looked incredibly dominant as champion so far, and there are no signs that Usman will be slowing down. Joe Rogan believes that Conor has to be careful what he wishes for here, and talks about how Conor has fought in the 170-pound division against former lightweights, and how Usman is a natural 170-pounder. This is what Joe said on his podcast recently about the whole thing.
But Usman's a different thing. That's a different peak. There's no oxygen at the top of that mountain. Shit. You know, that's as good as it gets ever at 170. I would put Kamaru Usman up against any 170-pound fighter that's ever lived. I mean, I'm not saying that he would beat Georges St. Pierre. I'm not saying he would beat all of them, but he might beat all of them.
Rogan joins Michael Bisping in his criticism of this potential clash. At the moment, Usman is slated to take on the #1 contender, Leon Edwards, in a rematch of their 2015 encounter. And again, Conor is still recovering from injury. But what do you think about Joe's comments here about a Conor-Kamaru fight? Do you agree with him? Eddie Hearn admits things are different in the UFC while talking about Paddy Pimblett's fight purse. Boxing promoter Eddie Hearn is chiming in with his thoughts on all the hoopla over Paddy Pimblett's fight purse for UFC London. Pimblett finished Kazula Vargas in the first round via submission at the O2 Arena last weekend and showed just how popular he is, generating a ton of momentum behind him even before the fight started, garnering millions of views on his Instagram during the pre-fight face-off. It's safe to say that Paddy is a star in the making. Days later, he confirmed to Barstool Sports that he did indeed make $12,000 to show and $12,000 to win that fight. Now, this doesn't count his $50,000 bonus nor any discretionary payouts. Still, many in the media have been dogging the UFC for the seemingly one-sided fight purse in regards to Paddy the Baddy. Now, Hearns is saying that there's a reason the UFC has been so successful in these deals. In an interview with Boxing King Media, Hearns said this when comparing UFC pay to boxing.
It's a different kind of structure in the UFC, and there are a lot of benefits of being with the UFC. Particularly when you talk about the training facilities and you talk about sponsorships as well and stuff like that. I don't know enough about the business. What I can tell you is that being up close and personal to it, every one of those fighters who won got out the octagon, ran round and cuddled Dana White.
The money that there is in big-time boxing is enormous, and those fighters make a pretty penny. But it's a very unforgiving sport, with shady promoters and all kinds of deals that can be made. The UFC, on the other hand, is pretty much Dana White and a few others making fights that the fans want to see and would also generate a lot of money at the same time. What do you make of Hearns' comments regarding UFC's pay structure? Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel to stay up to date on all of the latest fight news. Conor McGregor says RDA is never eligible for BMF belt, and RDA responds. Rafael dos Anjos is making sure that Conor McGregor knows exactly how he feels about him in a recent Twitter exchange. It all began when RDA tweeted at UFC President Dana White over the physical altercation involving Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington outside of a Miami restaurant last Monday in Miami Beach, in which Masvidal is accused of running up behind Colby and assaulting him. He now faces charges over the whole thing. But in a tweet about the situation, RDA let it be known he didn't care for what Masvidal is accused of doing. You're either a BMF or you're a sucker puncher. Can't be both at Dana White. Time to hand that belt to me. The BMF title was created for the UFC 244 bout between Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal, and came about after Nate Diaz called out Masvidal a few fights before, saying he was the quote, baddest MFer in the game. The fight took place in November 2019 with an actual belt on the line, and Masvidal defeated Diaz for it. Not too long after Dos Anjos tweeted this, Conor McGregor, whom RDA had called out earlier this week in a Portuguese language podcast, he responded to Dos Anjos in typical Conor fashion. In a since deleted tweet, he said this: pulled out with a sore toe in what would have been the biggest fight of your bloodline's existence, past, present, or future. You are never eligible. Now, RDA is firing back at Conor by saying this. Says the that needs bodyguards to go weigh in and taps to rear naked chokes too scared to go to sleep. Well, there's clearly a lot of animosity here. RDA stated this week that he believes Conor, who is still nursing a broken leg injury, could come back and fight him right away, given that both of them are former lightweight champions and still have a lot of fight in them. What do you think about this exchange between Conor and RDA? Darren Till believes Tom Aspinall would play with Jon Jones and beat him. There's no doubting how well-rounded Tom Aspinall is, finishing all 5 of his UFC opponents mostly in the first round, save for one second-round victory over Sergey Spivak last year. He's shown that he has a lethal submission game and a knockout ability that can floor anyone within seconds. Aspinall showcased his skill set during the main event of last weekend's UFC London card, submitting Alexander Volkov in the first round to a raucous O2 Arena crowd. His countryman, Darren Till, has been on a whirlwind media tour with his new bestie, Khamzat Chimaev, and they're being asked all sorts of questions during these entertaining interviews. In a recent one on the Triple C and Schmo show, Darren Till praised Aspinall's fight anywhere attitude, as well as his martial arts skills. He believes he can even beat former light heavyweight champion Jon Jones in the heavyweight division, if given the chance. This is what Till said during the interview.
Now, he just texted me, told me to stop calling up Gain for him. He wants to fight Ty and then Gain. So I think he knows his road. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the next champion in the heavyweight. I think he would play with Jones. I really do.
It's unclear what's next for the 28-year-old Aspinall, but there have been rumblings in the media that Jones is in talks to make his UFC heavyweight debut, finally, against someone like Stipe Miocic. But what do you make of Till's praise of Aspinall? And do you agree with him that he has what it takes to beat Jones? Thanks so much for joining us today and catching up on all things MMA. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all of the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.